Welcome to the Call the Vet Show, the podcast that helps pet parents understand and optimize the health of their furry family so they can live the full and happy life you want for them. And here's your host, veterinarian Dr. Alex Avery.
Hello, kia ora. Welcome to another episode of the Call the Vet Show. I'm really pleased that you could join me again today, and I've got another question to bring you after last episode's fantastic question, and it's certainly proved to be a popular episode. Kai sent in another question, and I'm really delighted to be answering her question about her cat who is pestering her for food. She's giving in to that pestering and wants it to stop. She wants her cat to stop pestering and some strategies to help achieve that, because I get this as well with my own cats. I mean, I've got a couple of young kids who are very accommodating to our cats when they ask for food, and it has also set us up for a very similar situation that Kai is experiencing. And I'm sure if you've got a cat or if you've got a dog, you recognize this. They put on those eyes, they give that particular meow, they maybe scratch at the food cupboard, and you give in, you feed them, but that's something that actually you then have to live with all day, every day. So today I'm going to be talking about that. It's kind of living my reality as well. So it's great to, talk to myself, if you like, and give myself tips as well. Before we get into that, though, I just wanted to let you know about some free resources that I've got available for you. I'm not very good at letting you know about some of the resources and some of the other things I do. So the one I want to tell you about today is the Healthy Dog and the Healthy Cat Checklist. So these are the essential steps that you can carry out today and that you need to do to keep your pet as happy and healthy as possible, and more importantly, to avoid some of the most common health issues, diseases, injuries that I see every single day in the vet clinic in my day job as a GP vet in practice. So I'd love for you to check out those guides. There's a whole range of other free resources as well, and you can actually find those at the Our Pets Health Academy. So you can go to ourpetshealthacademy.com. I'll leave a link in the show notes as well to get those completely free downloads. Now, there are a few other courses and things like that there as well, but yeah, there's a whole wealth of free information that is going to be super valuable for you, for caring for your pet, and ultimately making sure that they are living their best life. So I'd encourage you to head over to ourpetshealthacademy.com. And with that out the way, let's get into today's question.
And now, on with the show.
Hi there, my name is Kai, and I have a 1-year-old tabby cat. I named him Azrael after my video game. That's information you really didn't know, but I like it. Anyways, I had a question. He is a stray, and we found him last year in my yard. And I was wondering, because he just always seems to be so hungry all the time. And I didn't ask. I looked up your video, and I found out that my cat has conditioned me to feed him all the time whenever he wants, and also he is a stray, so he's not used to eating all that stuff. But I had a question, because he always seems to he scratches on my corkboard and scratches on my closet, which is where the food is at, just to get me to feed him. And I was wondering how to make that stop, because honestly, it is really annoying, and I just want to make it stop. But yeah, I just want to know what's best for him and all that stuff. But I'm assuming feeding him whenever he scratches at the door isn't really good. But yeah, so I know why, but I don't know how to stop it. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you.
So that's a great question, Kai. And like I said at the beginning, this is the reality of a lot of people. And it's something that definitely is worthwhile getting on top of and getting to grips with, not only for your own kind of sanity, if you like, but also for our pets' health, because overfeeding leads to being overweight and obesity. And that is the biggest preventable health problem that is present in our dogs and cats across the world, no matter where you live. It's thought that 60% plus of our pets are carrying too much weight, and that's putting them at risk of diabetes, of skin disease, of arthritis, of heart problems. You name it. If you're overweight, it's going to make it worse or make it more likely to happen. So this is absolutely something that we want to be getting on top of for our pets' well-being, as much as for our own mental health and sanity, without having our pets pestering us all the time for food. So a couple of suggestions here, Kai. The first one is to actually give lots of small meals. Now, one thing that some people will do is switch to ad lib feeding. So especially in our cats, that's leaving food down all the time and simply topping up their food bowl as it's getting low. That's going to stop them pestering you, but it's absolutely not the way to go, because that is absolutely going to lead to this problem with being overweight and obese and all of the problems that brings. So don't be tempted to feed your pet that way. And if you are feeding your pet that way, I'd really encourage you to stop and take stock of what you are feeding. Feed a set amount every day, actually weigh that out, but give that in different ways. So instead of just popping the food down in a bowl, they guzzle that in 2 seconds flat and then they're looking for more food. We want to be using food puzzles and toys. So we want to be using different things that stimulate their mind, that they have to actually think about to get that food reward. And that can be something as simple as having, when you get your next Amazon delivery and it comes in a box with some packing paper, it's actually just mix up the food in that. Or when you get a kitchen roll or a toilet roll in a tube, fold the ends over, punch a few holes in that, and they have to bat that around or shake it around to for that food to fall out and for them to access it. It can be even something as simple as, for a cat, starting with a plastic cup, a plastic beaker, popping the food in that, and your cat has to just hook it out with their paw, or they have to just push it around, and the food is very easily accessible. But when we're introducing this idea of food puzzles and toys, we want to start off easy and gradually increase the difficulty as your cat or your dog gets used to solving these puzzles and eating in this different way. Equally, when we're starting to introduce this concept, we want to not necessarily be using just their normal food. We want to be using a food with a higher reward, so treats or something just a little bit different that you reserve for those special occasions for your dog or cat, because then they're going to be more motivated to actually working out how to get to that food. So making them work for their food is really, it's really good for their mental well-being as well. I think a lot of the time our pets are bored, and I'm going to come on to that in a little bit, but providing some stimulation helps prevent that boredom, so improves their mental well-being, but it's also going to slow down the rate at which they're eating, and they're going to get those signals from their body that they're actually full rather than just guzzling everything and still feeling hungry. The other thing that we can do, and especially with cats, is actually hide these small food puzzles or small food packages, if you like, around the house in different places. So don't always feed them in a single spot. Our cats, our cats out in the wild, so to speak, they will hunt very regularly and they will consume their small prey often, so they're getting small meals much more frequently, but they're having to kind of hunt. And by hiding the food packages around the house, the food puzzles around the house, that can stimulate some of that, or simulate some of that hunting behavior that they would have to do, again leading to more mental stimulation and a happier, more content cat. For dogs, we can do something as simple as throw the food out into the backyard, as long as it's not wet, and we need to be careful about attracting pests and all that kind of thing. But something as simple as that, it doesn't take a lot of resources or money or things that you have to buy to follow through with these ideas. It just takes a little bit of creative thinking. Now the next thing, Kai, the next suggestion is, as you kind of mentioned and suggested in your question, is actually don't give in to the pestering, because that leads to them training you to feed them every time that they ask for food. So our pets are very often more clever than we give them credit for, and if every time they scratch the door you feed them, they're going to work out very quickly that they're just going to scratch the door if they want food, regardless of whether they're hungry or not. So don't give in to them. Now that can be quite challenging, especially in the early stages, if you are already trained, if your cat has already trained you, or if your dog has already trained you to give them food on command, if you like. It's interesting when you put it that way, that they are training us to do things on command, whereas we think, of training as we give the commands and they do the action. It's very often the other way around. So it can be a bit difficult to start with, but you need to harden your heart, if you can, to recognise that they're not hungry, that they're eating their designated portion of food in a day. They're getting all the calories, all the nutrients, all the energy that they need, and you don't need to feed them. We need to kind of remove that association of feeding and love and care, and recognise that actually we need to make these changes for the benefit of their health and actually for the benefit of their well-being as well. So with that in mind, we also need to think about how we can banish the boredom for our pets. If we think about our dogs and cats, they're very often left home alone for a long period of time every day. Even if you're in the house, it might be that you're doing other things and you're not paying them any kind of attention, and they're left to their own devices. But really, is there much for them to do? I suspect, and I'd suggest that in a lot of cases, there's not actually much to keep them entertained. And it's just like us. If we're bored, what do? We go to the cupboard. We can get into the chip packet or open that chocolate bar and quickly finish it. We eat when we're bored, and it's the same for our pets. So we need to banish that boredom as well. So we can think about cat furniture for our indoor cats. We've got the catios, we've got the jungle gyms, we've got a whole range of different ways that we can make our cat's environment more interesting for them. We also should be rotating toys. So for dogs and cats, we absolutely can encourage play, but we need to be rotating toys. There's no good having that one of the popular cat accessories at the moment is the fish with the motor in it that kind of flops around. Well, if your cat has already killed that 10 times in their mind, just leaving it out on the floor is not going to encourage them to play with it, because they're just thinking, well, there's this dead thing on the floor, why is it still there, or what am I supposed to do with that? We need to be rotating their toys on a regular basis. We can also be scheduling playtime. So lots of times when our pets are hassling us and we're associating that with them wanting food, they're actually just wanting some attention, and giving them attention is the best treat that you can give them. So schedule some play times. For our cats, it's going to be short sharp sessions. For our dogs, they can play for an awful lot longer in a single session. Thinking back to cats specifically and Kai's issue here, we've got things like catios for our indoor cats, so we can get them outside so they can kind of experience the sights, the sounds, the smells of being outside without those potential risks that being outside brings. I have outdoor cats, and that's kind of right for me and my family, but there are risks with being outdoors. I guess the biggest one that I see at the vet clinic is either being lost, getting into fights with other cats. It's spring here in New Zealand, and all of the entire cats are in breeding mode, and that means that fights have become much more common, and also of course being in accidents on the road, which can have catastrophic consequences. So there are risks of being outside, but catios allow our indoor only cats to experience some of those benefits and that extra stimulation that being outside brings. We can also bring the outside in, and by that I mean if it's fall at the moment in the northern hemisphere, autumn, bring in some leaves that are falling off the trees, get that experience, those smells, bring them into the house. That different texture, those different items are going to be really intriguing for your cat, and they're going to really benefit from that extra stimulation. As far as all this goes, I actually discussed this, the feeding and also this banishing boredom in a lot more detail in episode number 101 with cat behaviourist Ingrid Johnson. That was a fantastic episode. So if you do have a cat in your life, whether they're an indoor cat or an outdoor cat, I definitely encourage you to jump back into the archives to episode number 101 with cat behaviourist Ingrid Johnson. And then I guess the final thing to say in response to Kai's question is that we always need to consider if there is a medical problem. So it's very easy to say that, my cat seems hungry all the time, but, as far as I can see, they seem healthy. And so I'm just going to work on these strategies that I've already discussed. But if they are hungry all the time, especially if they're losing weight, maybe their coat condition is a bit poor, or there are any other concerns, then it may well be that there is a medical issue going on. And so getting a vet check is going to be really important. And I'm thinking here things like an overactive thyroid, hypothyroidism, very, very common in older cats. Diabetes is definitely more common than it used to be, because going back to what I said at the beginning, our increase in the number of overweight and obese animals is significant. We've also got things like inflammatory bowel disease, we've got cancer, we've got worms. Now, worms are very often blamed for our pets that are hungry all the time, and sometimes I'll get cats into the clinic who have lost an awful lot of weight and the owner is blaming worms. Now, that's really not going to be the case in the vast majority of situations, but if there's any doubt, a simple parasite treatment will solve that problem, and if it doesn't, then that really is a good indication that there is more going on. I've got a video that talks about this as well, and I'll link that into the show notes, as well as that episode with Ingrid Johnson. And I guess finally it's worth talking about scratching as well, because Kai's cat is scratching at the furniture, and we're assuming that is because they want to be fed, and that's a fair assumption if it's where the food is kept. But cats do also need to scratch, and they will choose the place that they scratch if we don't kind of give them the resources to scratch in a safe way or an appropriate place where we want them to. So cats scratch to mark their territory, as well as to keep their claws sharp and in good condition. So that is a normal behavior. And if you have a cat, you need to accept that they will want to scratch and they will scratch. So that's part and parcel of having a cat. So, don't tell them off for scratching. You want to provide somewhere for them to scratch. Now, if where they choose, is fine for you, then just let them scratch there. That's not a problem. But, for many of us, it's the arm of the sofa or that nice rug that we don't really want all the threads brought out, and can very quickly look pretty scraggly. So you can train them to use a scratching post or a scratching mat. Again, I'll leave links in the show notes to some more information about how you can get them to use a scratching post or scratching mat, and actually in an area where you want them to scratch. And then I guess finally as well, just, declawing is something that I know is a thing in North America especially, but really it's becoming less acceptable, and it's actually becoming illegal in more and more parts of the world, and that can only be a good thing. So, even if it's only briefly crossed your mind, please don't ever consider getting your cat declawed. It really is a mutilation for them. You're stopping them performing an essential part of normal cat behavior, which is really important for their well-being as well. So, never consider declawing as a solution for your cat scratching.
Helping your pet live the happy, healthy life they deserve.
So if you're going through a very similar situation to Kai, I hope that gives you some really practical steps that you can implement and start implementing today. It's going to take time. Any kind of behavior change from our point of view, as well as our pets, it does take time. But if we put in the effort, if we're consistent, you can definitely get there to claim back your sanity and stop being pestered all the time, but also to improve your pet's physical as well as mental health. And that's so important if they're going to live, their very best life. So all that's left for me to do is to say thank you so much for your time. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining me for another episode. If you do enjoy these episodes, consider hitting that subscribe or follow button on whatever app you're listening to this on. And if you've got a pet-loving friend or family member who would benefit from the information that I talk about in these podcast episodes, then I'd love it if you could forward this to them or share it on social media and tag them, so that I can help more pets across the world, no matter where you are. And with that in mind, until the next episode, I'm veterinarian Dr. Alex. This is the Call the Vet Show, because they're family.
That's it for this episode of the Call the Vet Show. Be sure to visit callthevet.org to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our fantastic bonus content. We'll see you next time.